Oh, Joseph, you are still standing today. So we're gonna give you just a little bit of praise. A little bit of praise just for you. Well, you went and you survived, you know what? You know we gotta give you praise. Sing that name. Oh, Joseph, we praise you. And when we do, we'll make it rain. Oh, can I get an amen? Oh, you did it. You survived and you're still alive. Well, for all you do, we praise you.
Hi, this is Penn. Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me. He does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. I want to talk about Joseph Jaffe is not famous. And Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Joseph Jaffe is wicked not famous. Joseph Jaffe is superlatively not famous, and for good and sufficient reason. I mean, maybe his guests are famous. Maybe his guests are famous. He gets some famous people on his guests, but Joseph Jaffe himself is not famous. That's the important part. You can have famous guests and still not be famous. And if you want an example of that, well, Joseph Jaffe would be a really good example. Teller would do a better job at a talk show, and Teller doesn't talk, which you'd think would be one of the major qualifications of being on a talk show and not being famous. What's that, Teller? Oh, yeah, Teller says, Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Love you. Peace.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be
No.
an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
But by the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? Yes. It is Friday, March 18th. How the hell are you? You can only be good. You can only be great because, of course, you survived the week like I survived 2021, like I survived South by Southwest. And it is good to be home. It is good to be in the global headquarters of Not Famous Land. And we have a great show today. More on that in a moment. Wow, what a week. It was a week in which I launched the Alpha Collective with 5 founders and advisors, including someone who has a connection to Fridays and certainly to the Meta Athletes, Mr. Brian Fanzo himself, who is one of our advisors. And more on that certainly as we go through the week, because it is NFT Fridays. And so today we celebrate the Meta Athletes, the long-awaited debut of Meta Athletes NFT collection, which drops. Does an NFT collection drop or does it rise? We hope it rises, just like the floor rises. It will be rising from not the ashes, but from the servers, from the blockchain on Monday. And we're going to talk to one of their co-founders today. This is them, but don't worry, they're doxed. You're going to meet the man behind the plan. You're going to meet Mr. Drew Cohen. He's been in the background, but he's ready to take center stage. And you're going to meet Matt Szczur, who is a little bit of an athlete himself, recently retired. But there is so much more to him that meets the eye. And yes, I know I've got Roger Clemens's likeness on here. Roger Clemens, I guess, is the one on the right. Sue me, Roger, sue me. I'm just kidding. I'd love him to be on the show, as a Yankees fan as well, not as a Red Sox fan, but as a Yankees fan, and they will be on the show soon enough. But now it is time to get to our wheel of names. It's time to draw a winner for this incredible. I mean, look, I want to win. Am I allowed to win? Should I? I should be able to win. It's my show. I can make the rules. I'm going to put my name into the wheel of names and spin, and I want to win her. Even though I've bought several non-fungible people recently, but let's spin the wheel and see who's going to win that NFT. And the winner is, drum roll, please. It is Pixelese Official. You have won that NFT. Please contact me, and I will be only too happy to make sure that you receive a courtesy of the non-fungible people. Today, I'm thrilled. I want to thank the folks over at Meta Athletes, because they will be giving away an NFT from their collection. And as always, you just need to do a few things in order to qualify. What you've got to do is you've got to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, paste your YouTube username in my Not Famous Discord server, join the Meta Athletes Discord server, and follow us both on Twitter. And of course, your fourth born child belongs to us as well. So just read the fine print. And you know what? They're so unbelievable, the folks over at Meta Athletes, that anybody who is watching today, we'll talk about it once they come on, that just pings Drew or Matt or any of the founders. We're going to make sure that you get on the whitelist for that high-profile launch on Monday. How about that? We thank them very much for their generosity. Next week, Lisa Bayer on the show on Monday. Some very special guests, old friends and new friends, on Tuesday. But here's a hint: it very much has to do with the Alpha Collective. James Scherer on Wednesday, the artist Terrera on Thursday, and then in keeping with NFT Fridays, Ali Sabet will be on the show next Friday. So we really are indexing a lot over the last week and coming weeks, not just on NFT collections, but actually on the people that create the art behind the collections. And a lot of people say, I buy it for the art, and a lot of people try and find their forever NFT. But a lot of people say it's not about the art, it's about the utility. And to them, I say, bah humbug, it's about everything. And the art is a huge part of it. Hello to Lubna, who is watching. Lubna, you're going to get a whitelist for Meta Athletes, which is awesome. And, you're going to get a little bit of Jaffe coin as well, which, of course, we give away every single episode. There is the QR code. That QR code will actually be live for the entire week, because we welcome everyone in the Meta Athletes NFT Discord server, everyone in their community. Everyone has an opportunity to get a little bit of Jaffe coin over the next week. And so that QR code will be around and alive and kicking over the next week. But now it's time to get into our seated soliloquy. And the soliloquy is called Connection. And I'll tell you, I decided to go with Connection after reading the briefing document from Drew and Matt, and reading out how they're building a community one person at a time, one brick at a time. And, this idea of connection, it actually came from coffee this morning. I do coffee every morning at 6 a.m. In the Giraffe Tower in Gary Club. And someone actually said that this is all about community. This whole NFT space, this Web3 world, it's all about community. And I said, you know what? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But here's the thing. I've been writing about community for as long as I've been writing. In Life After the 30-Second Spot, one of my 10 approaches, I wrote that book in 2004, was called Communal Marketing, Marketing to and through Communities. Guess what? Communal marketing became known as social media. The term did not exist yet, and nor did Facebook. And then enjoying the conversation, the subhead of the book said, you can see the books on my shelf right there, How to Engage Marketing Weary Consumers Through the Power of Community, Dialogue, and Partnership. So here's the thing. Is this about community? No. How could it just be about community? Community has always been around, but maybe what we're seeing now is that this is about community done right, about finally being able to deliver on the promise and potential of community. We spoke about it before, but we never really could do anything about it. We could never really deliver the engagement, the connection. So maybe, just maybe, this isn't about community, but it's about connection. Do we really crave community, or do we crave connection? Do we want connection? Do we need connection? Do we need recognition, validation, someone to tell us you are important, you are valuable, you mean something to me, you made my day, you changed my life, you made me smile, you turned me around when I was feeling down, you helped improve my mental health, my self-love, you were able to lift me up. That is the power of connection. And it is a very innately human quality. The technology helps, no doubt. The technology enables, quite literally sometimes, a connection. We have bad connections with bad Wi-Fi, but we also have bad connections with respect to human relationships as well. So let us celebrate the power of connection, the power of community. Let us celebrate it in a day and age where athletes are no longer athletes, but are truly connected to communities and enabled, and able, I should say, to be able to make someone's day, someone's week, sometimes someone's month, someone's year, maybe even someone's entire life. And with that said, it is now time to bring on the folks over at Meta Athletes. Keeping it very short and sweet, Drew Cohen is one of the co-founders of Meta Athletes, and Matt Szczur is a World Series champion. He is an OG NFT artist, which means he's been doing it since 2019. I mean, that is like a lifetime ago, with multiple sold-out drops ranging from $500 to $15,000 to 50. Is that, I got to see, is that 15 ETH or $15,000 sales? Bottom line is, he is a multi-talented individual. He is an advisor to Meta Athletes. Let's bring them on and welcome them to the show. And I will do my same little joke, which is, what, you didn't think you were actually going to see human beings? Matt and Drew, welcome to the show.
Josh, thanks for having us.
You're like, wait a second, are we, is this, no, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. Let's see your beautiful faces. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josh. Excited to be here. That was a hell of an intro.
Well, thank you. And I love how you're calling me Jeffs. You know, my brother calls me Jeffs. So now there are two people that call me Jeffs. And Drew, I am happy that you are one of them. You guys are basically guest number 348A and 348B. So these are your titles. And one of the things that we do on the show is, you know, off the bat, you know, this is all about getting over our awkward moments. Today is actually, believe it or not, National Awkward Moments Day. So Matt and Drew, have you ever had an awkward moment in your life? Hopefully you're not saying this is one right now.
I feel like I've been training for this day. I didn't even know this was a thing, but that's a good question. I had one recently with, I coach a youth ice hockey team, and we're going out there, and this was just the first thing that came to mind is we had refs just like not show up for our games. And so it was a totally awkward moment where both our teams are already there, sitting on the benches, just waiting for these refs to come out. And turns out that they thought the game was canceled and they never came out there. And so luckily this was at a tournament where they had refs readily available from just being finishing up games on the other side of the rink and things like that. But it was definitely an awkward moment where I kind of like look over to the other bench and both the coaches are just like, what's going on here? Are we going to play today or not? So that's probably the most recent awkward moment that I've had.
So Matt, I'm sure you've never had an awkward moment ever in your life, right?
No, I'm sure I've had a bunch. The only ones that really stick out is, at one point in my baseball career, it was ball 3, and I thought it was ball 4. So I started walking to first base, and they had to call me back to the batter's box. And I ended up striking out, so it was that was pretty awkward.
I mean,
that's Little League, bro. That's Little League.
There is no doubt. By the way, we have a beautiful studio audience. They are ready to laugh at every single joke except for mine, because generally my jokes end up with crickets as well. But I can imagine the analogy of thinking that maybe you would advance to first base and not. It's definitely an analogy, I think, in life. Brian Dale Fanzo, who might be known to some of you, he said, "Go team, go." And then he jumped from Facebook to YouTube because he is multi-talented, multi-hyphenated, multi-platform, and said, such an amazing project and team. Well, unfortunately, your awkward moments are not done yet, because we had to go and send our private investigators into the field to find out some fun facts or interesting moments about you. And yes, I know maybe Matt's thinking, what the hell is he going to come up with? But let's start with Mr. Drew Cohen. Now, Drew Cohen is Korean and Jewish, half Korean and half Jewish. I had to think of like how I wanted to portray him, and this is what I came up with. I mean,
that's pretty good.
I thought a little bit of K-pop, a little bit of a synagogue. Were you the synagogue choir, etc.? But you are a superstar, Drew. So there is your Korean Jewish combination. How about that?
Hey, that's pretty good, Josh. I like that one. I'm gonna have to screenshot that one.
Hey, listen, my photoshopping skills are so awful. But I mean, what photoshopping skills? This is a real photo. Matt, Matt, we're not going to embarrass you at all, because your entire life is a amazing moment. Fun fact. Here, I don't know what this moment was. It might have been a grand slam, but you've certainly had many of these moments in your life. Do you know this moment in particular, or were there just so many times you were the hero that you can't even remember?
No, I think it was a walk-off. I had a walk-off, so we won the game on one of my at-bats. That's what it was.
That's got to be just the most amazing feeling in the world, to single-handedly lift your team and win. And I think it's probably what every schoolboy or every athlete just dreams of, is scoring the winning goal, the winning touchdown, the winning pass, the winning the winning run. You've won the World Series. And I had 2 questions, because I think that they have such amazing life lesson analogies. The first one is this idea of winning the World Series for the Cubs. You broke the curse. You were part of just an unbelievable moment in time and a moment in life where every neutral fan was celebrating for you and with you. What did that mean to you to break a curse? And specifically this idea of, I mean, I've been supporting Tottenham Hotspur my entire life. My son hates me for the fact that he's a Spurs fan now. They last won the league before I was born. What message do you send to people that are almost ready to give up on getting the trophy, the silverware, whether it is in sports or in life?
Yeah, I mean, you grow up and obviously you want to be a professional athlete, and when you become a professional athlete, you want to win at the highest level, and being a part of that team, that World Series team in 2016 was incredible. I think the biggest thing was, something you mentioned before about like connection and community. The biggest thing for us was we were such a close knit team, family, friends, and I think we just pushed and we wanted each other to win, if that makes sense. You're in a competitive nature where, in some aspects, people don't want you to play well because they want to play, and kind of so on and so forth. But, for us, everybody wanted everybody to win. And I think that was like the most special part is not necessarily, being an individual, but being more of a family oriented team. And I think that's like the community, the friendships, the family, that's what made us all winners. And then, for advice, I mean, I have this saying that I learned at Villanova. I went to Villanova College, Villanova University, and played football and baseball there. And one of the things that we talked about was always tapping the rock. And the story around that is about it's the parable of the stone cutter. The stone cutter taps the rock every day. And on the, 100th day, thousandth day, that stone finally breaks. And it's not that last hit that makes the stone break. It's all the hits that lead up to that last hit. So, what I try to do every day is tap the rock, and, I just keep tapping it until finally one day it's going to break.
I just absolutely love that analogy. And I would say the only rock you don't want to tap is the actual, the rock, because he might tap you back. But the other analogy I often use, Matt, and I actually got goosebumps while you were saying that, while you were telling that story, just to hear it from your mouth, and that resilience and that shared determination to succeed, that will to succeed. The analogy I always use is the water that where there's ironically a rock in the middle of the river. And the water doesn't actually try and beat down that rock. It goes around the rock. But over time, that rock is reduced, to pebbles and ultimately sand. And it's a different way that actually says perseverance, persistence, staying the course, endurance is the mark of a great champion. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Now, I'll tell you something that I have no idea how I'm going to actually do this, because normally I need two people. So what I'm going to do is I am going to disappear from the screen for a second and show you the quote that I actually found with respect to today. And let's just see if this works. So I'm going to disappear for a second so you can read the quote, because Matt, I couldn't think of a better time to bring this quote up than right now. So I'm going to disappear for a second, and then I'll come back. Behold the turtle, right? I saw this and I thought, he makes progress only when he sticks his neck out. James Bryan Conant. And I thought to myself, isn't that an interesting quote? Because I was inspired by when I read this idea of what you are doing with meta athletes and what you believe in, building community brick by brick. Or Matt, to use your words or your analogy, building community hit by hit, or breaking the rock hit by hit as well. Slow and steady wins the race. I would love for you to introduce, for both of you to introduce the Meta Athletes community, the Meta Athletes NFT collection. Begin with the origin story and how you really are delivering against this idea of the tortoise that will eventually win the race, but also doing it by taking chances.
Yeah, I'll hop in here on this one. The brick by brick kind of saying that, I mean, we use it on our team group message almost, it seems like every day. It's just a constant reminder of brick by brick. There's a lot of different examples that we use. Matt uses the tap the rock. We use the brick by brick. Our agency that I founded with Ryan Hurry 2 years ago, we adopted a mile 62, which Jaffe, I think you heard that episode with Fanzo. when he gave some, he paid some respects to the Mile 62 connotation that we actually named our agency after. But it all comes back down to what you were just talking about, that kind of persistent, consistent pursuit of whatever that goal or achievement might be. For us, building community brick by brick simply means, and that quote that you put up about the turtle is a perfect example of, just going out there. And I kind of view it as not playing scared. And so, for myself personally, it's, I'm not a public speaker. I tend to partner and support public speakers like Brian Fanzo, other athletes that we work with. But for myself, what that quote says to me is, get out there and get on Clubhouse and Spaces, these audio rooms where there only might be 10, 15, 20, 30 people in there, but I'm going to choose to go up on stage and try to provide value, whether that's, AMAs, Ask Me Anythings on the NFT space based on our experience as being operators and executors in the space, or if it's simply sharing meta athletes, why it's significant, why we're different, why we believe that you should be betting on us in the NFT space. And so that quote about sticking your neck out there, in a previous life years ago, I wouldn't be on Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. I wouldn't be leading the charge on hosting these conversations, or even being on this YouTube with you, Jaffe. Like it's typically not something that I do. So that quote speaks to me. It's actually what I've been doing over the last 6 months as I've entered the NFT space, because I fully subscribe to the idea that you're paying attention to people, not so much the what of the NFT, but it's more the who. And so my main mission was to bring people together, whether they're founders on the projects, people that help educate. Everybody kind of has a role. So similar to a sports team, we have different positions and different roles. That was kind of my main mode of like brick by brick and building this community is, first let's bring in the right people, build a foundation that people would have trust in. So guys like Matt, who, he's just, every single kind of chapter of his life, he's kind of proved that he's somebody who's not only trustworthy, but somebody that's doing and building out of good. He wants to be the best teammate. He's helping strangers by donating bone marrow. Nobody told him that he needed to do that, right? It was just something that he inherently had in his kind of like soul and his person to want to be of service to somebody else. So as and Fanzo will tell you the same thing, I'm kind of like the connector of all this, of the project. I found the tech team, I found the design, who actually happened to be a professional athlete, and the co-founder Kevin Smith, which we'll hop into a little bit too. But going out and finding Fanzo, getting Matt Szczur, like all these guys coming in to help us build this. But the main idea here is these are all people that we can trust, and these are people that have history and excellence, in being a high performer, which is essentially the community that we're looking to build. So I pulled in all these pieces, and brick by brick for us means, let's not worry about the full sellout on day one. Like, let's worry about what's in front of us today. What can we do today? What can we kind of control today that is more focused and dialed in on the journey versus just the end result. So of course we want to sell out our project. Of course we want a thriving floor, but it doesn't just show up, right? So what can we do today is essentially the motto. What brick are we putting up today? What single brick are we putting up? So that might be hopping on this Twitter space and doing an AMA so people have a better foundation of knowledge for wallet security. That might be the brick today. It might be launching an activation or collaboration with somebody else that we trust in a space that already has a thriving community. And we want to get in front of the community and say, hey, this is what Meta Athletes is about. If this interests you, let's bring you into our project as well. And because we truly believe that we don't want to be the only NFT project that people are being a part of and kind of collecting and joining communities. We know it's going to be a variety. So we want to just have our part and our play. So we want to help athletes and high performers have the opportunity to network, grow, and develop in a certain skill set through NFT technologies that they could potentially transact at a later date. So that's, when I see brick by brick or tap the rock or mile 62, that's what comes to mind for me, Jaffe.
Dude, for someone who's been sitting in the background and not accustomed to public speaking, you get...
Appreciate that.
You crushed it. I should just end the show right now.
That was pretty good, right? We're done here.
That was great. Well, fortunately, it's recorded as well. You can get a transcript and you can just be like cut and paste. Yeah, that was awesome. I remember exactly where I was. I was walking the dog. It was nighttime and cold as hell. I think I just got back from the airport, and I try and take my dog out every day. And I was listening to that episode about the magic of mile 62. And I would just love for you to tell us what it means. But I remember it. I am convinced, by the way, that my 60-second NFT that I bought was the one that I sold for 2 ETH. It was the most expensive one I'd ever sold. And I'm convinced it happened to me at 62, almost to the number. But please tell people quickly the magic of 62.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I'd love to share an example right after too of how this tapped into Fanzo's project and his podcast that we've been building. But essentially, Miles 62 is a concept that we learned from. And when I say we, it's because a lot of people in my life came from this this one single figure that we worked for about 2 years ago. His name's Charlie Jabley, Charlie Rocket. He built himself this persona of being a rocket, and the reason being, and where Miles 62 comes into play, is he had this sequence of all rockets start off slow. So when you start a new habit, when you're trying to accomplish something, it might be putting out a new record, it might be putting out a new art series, it might be a podcast. It always starts off slow just by nature, you know. So he always had this concept of, if you've ever seen a rocket actually take off, like live or video, and you know, people are always like, oh, he's moving like a rocket, and they're giving this connotation of he's moving extremely fast at the speed of light. But if you actually watch a rocket take off, it's like kind of painfully slow. It literally, like, you just see it kind of just there, just slowly starting to take off, and then it slowly moves toward outer space. And so he had this concept of, when you start a new habit, it starts slow, and that first mile or that first day or that first action you take towards that result is going to be the longest, hardest. You're going to use the most fuel. You're not going to be going as fast as you'd like to be going. But as you start to you know, permeating through outer space, you get mile 2, mile 4, mile 6, mile 10. You start to generate momentum, and it actually takes less fuel as you're going. As you're getting away from Earth's gravity and the power of gravity pulling against you and pulling you back down. And so that was his concept of saying, if you can just continue moving, even though you're going really slow, actually being slow is okay, because all rockets start off slow. If you can just kind of keep powering through, you'll find that it starts to lighten up for you. It starts to get a little bit easier for you. So that 30th podcast or the 40th podcast, you start to see some momentum. You don't feel like people are pulling you down to stop it anymore. And then 62 is the magic number. It's actually, I don't really know why this isn't taught in schools, because this seems like one of those like interesting facts that every single fifth grader knows, but there's 62 miles to outer space. And so as you're getting to that point and you hit the 62-mile point, it just releases. Gravity just releases for you. You feel weightless, and you can just move as fast as you would like to move. And so that concept is how we apply our services to guys like Matt, guys like Kevin Smith and the NFT project, guys like Brian Fanzo. We help and support them to get to this point where whatever they're looking to do marketing wise or media wise, they hit this point where it's like, okay, we built a system, we pushed through the first 62 episodes. Now we have this like stride of momentum to actually get closer to the result that we're looking for. And where this ties with Fanzo is at literally the 62nd episode. This is ultimately what motivated him to put out that message on that episode. He got an email from Spotify and Apple, and then we actually hit the top, you know, rankings on podcasts for Apple and Spotify at the 62nd episode. So for him, it was like to a T. In our experience, we kind of find this like 59 or 64 or whatever it might be, a YouTube episode, a piece of content, whatever it might be. But for him, it was like right on the dot at 62. And it sounds like for you too with that NFT. And so
it's amazing.
It's a story of consistency.
Well, we're gonna move over to Matt in a moment. I just love it. Instead of thinking about a tipping point, it's maybe I'm gonna say, Matt, I think you'll like this. Instead of a tipping point, how about a tapping point? A tapping point, and I'm gonna go from tap the rock to tap the rocket. And I'm not talking about Roger Clemens, because he's probably as scary as the Rock as well. So tap the rocket. Matt, let's go to you. I mean, we talk about sticking your neck out, and I don't think people even realize how unbelievably talented you are. I mean, you were one of the first athletes to enter the NFT space, 2 years ago. But you're also, focusing on your art. That has got to be that has got to have been also sticking your neck out, taking a risk, taking a chance. Tell us about your journey and now kind of where you are and what the next phase of your journey looks like. And I will say, and this is super exciting. I think as soon as this is done, I'm going to have to make sure that I go and head over and look at this collection. But you've produced Game Over, which really announces your retirement from baseball the best way you know how, which I assume is a collection. So tell us about the risks you've taken. Tell us where you are right now, and tell us where you're going.
Yeah, so I got into producing art in 2015. Did it my whole life. My wife and I started a foundation, and our foundation raises awareness for bone marrow, and we also raise money for local community members, whether it's cancer, food for like Thanksgiving, or just food for the weekends, and we do presents as well for right around Christmas time. We had a foundation event in 15, and we tried to figure out ways to raise money other than just ticket sales. So what I did was I always wanted to kind of like get back into painting, and I painted a self-portrait of myself as a baseball player and a self-portrait of myself as a football player, and both of the pieces sold for $500 each. So I didn't really think anything of it. I was super pumped that they sold. And then in 2016 we won the World Series, and that following year the Cubs had reached out to me and they said, hey, we have our Bricks and Ivy Ball, which is their big charity fundraiser. Would you be interested in painting a World Series piece for the event? And for me, it was a no-brainer, because I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. I get to have some fun and produce a sick painting. Yeah, that right there is one of the ones I did for the foundation event. So I was able to produce this painting for the Bricks and Ivy Ball, and we raised $40,000. And when that happened, I was like, wow, maybe I kind of have something here. So then every offseason, I just kind of continued to grind on my style and just kind of push the envelope on it a little bit, and started making more money as a hobby. And once COVID hit and The Last Dance came out, I started doing Michael Jordan paintings and really started to take off and kind of not necessarily be a household name, but be an artist athlete. And then Micah Johnson, who is he produced Aku, who is tremendous NFT kind of spirit in the game. He reached out to me really early in 2019 and 20 when COVID hit, and it was like, hey, do you want to do a George Floyd collab? Black, white baseball players who are artists coming together to do a piece. So I said, yeah, of course. He's like, let's do a physical, and then we can do NFT as well. And I kind of was like, I never had heard of an NFT. So I was like, what's an NFT? And he said, it's only Ethereum blockchain. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I trusted him because he was a fellow baseball player, and I knew that he was kind of looking out for me. So we did this NFT sale, and we sold out in like 6 minutes. Raised, I think it was like 30 grand. And I remember looking at my wife and saying, wow, we just sold out our NFTs. And she looked at me and said, what's an NFT? And I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. So after that, I was like, all right, I have to really figure out what an NFT is. And then I just kind of started the grind on NFT. And like you said about sticking my neck out, it was, I feel like I had to be vulnerable to sell. And, I was an athlete who was painting, and it that doesn't really go hand in hand. So I was kind of like, I just need to really be completely vulnerable and see how it works. So once I like kind of came out and I started painting with like emotion and having a story background to it, I started to really sell, man. And like you said earlier, my first sales were right around a couple $100. And then to my latest sale, which was 15 ETH, which is a pretty solid sale. But I tapped the rock, and I continue to tap the rock, and I obviously want to be a top artist and continue to do well. And that's my plan. I'm coming out with this retirement series to kind of lay baseball to rest, but show that I'm, able to get something else as well. I'm doing 9 collabs with 9 different artists, and to represent 9 innings throughout this 2022 year. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to do really well, and it means a lot to me. It's really put my neck out and being vulnerable and showing emotion, from the game and for.
It's unbelievable, and in fact, I have. Let's go to it. There we go. This is game over, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was just so touched when you spoke about this idea of I had to be vulnerable to sell. Why do you think that that's so hard for people? Why do you think it doesn't come naturally, and why it's so difficult for people to show that little bit of vulnerability that can unlock ultimately their true self, their authentic self, and their potential?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just kind of speaking from, for myself, is I didn't want somebody to look at me like I was weak. I've been a football player, wrestler, an athlete my whole life. And once you become vulnerable and kind of start to share emotions, you look weak. And that's just the reality of, that's the fact, it is what it is. And, but for me, it was kind of a way to kind of like let go, if that makes sense. It is very therapeutic for me, and it was super easy to finally, like, after that first piece had sold, and it sold for like $1,200, which was awesome. And I wasn't excited about the money. I was excited about like the collector who like believed in what I was doing, and that was emotional for me. So once that happened, I was like, all right, this is, I tell Drew this all the time, truth sells. So, a lot of my paintings, I paint the skeleton, and I paint the skeleton to raise awareness for bone marrow, so when you and I talk, when Drew and I talk, when Drew's like, hey, what's the skeleton? I can say, well, I donated bone marrow to a little girl and saved her life. And why don't you join the bone marrow registry? So it's that is like a truth. That truth sells. And in my paintings, I try to tell a story. I made a painting about tapping the rock. I made a painting about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, like things that are relatable to everybody, and that, you don't have to be an actor, you just have to be, a person.
What I mean, gotta give it to you too, Matt. That's so beautiful. Truth sells, and how kind of vulnerability does, in fact, unlock, and vulnerability as a release. There was some amazing insights there, Matt. I know you have to run, but we are going to spend the rest of our time today just going through the actual collection, and telling people how they can get access to meta athletes. But you, Matt, you are not a meta athlete. You are a mega athlete. I just want to thank you for sharing and being vulnerable today, for being a part of this project, and I'm really looking forward to staying connected to you in the future.
Yeah, of course. And, for me and meta athletes, the reason I got involved is because of, the truth sells. What Drew had brought to my attention was, they want to help people, and I'm all for helping people. They want to help people, into Web3. They want to help athletes and fans. And, when I got involved with, MetaMask and Coinbase, it was kind of difficult. I had no idea what I was doing, and I wish somebody could have helped me. So for everybody who wants to be a part of the Web3 community, which, everybody's going to be a part of it, it's just going to be an easy transition to work with meta athletes. And, that is like the utility in the project, is us and having coaches and having mentors help people into Web3. And I think that's special because of the fact that Web3 is going to be so big for this world, very, very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, shout out to my mom who is watching. Mom, you're watching a World Series champion, and I'm not even talking about the baseball. I'm talking about his art. Amy Moffat says, building a project and community brick by brick, betting on the who behind the what. I love it. And Steve Garfield says, all great talk show guests have to run. So Matt, we're gonna let you run. And we just can't wait to follow and celebrate your journey.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's just fun.
You're welcome. It is my pleasure. All right, Drew, you're in the hot seat. It's just you and me. I want to make sure that we discuss meta athletes. First of all, let's tell people a few important things. Number one, if you want to get on the whitelist for Monday's drop, you just have to contact the folks over at Meta Athletes. Best way to do that is through the Discord, I assume.
It is. And I actually have it set up right now where people are joining, live into the Discord. They'll get the whitelist role. And we have an announcement come out later today to actually connect the wallet to join. But hey, Jobs, when Matt was talking about something, I want to just bring up one point because this is something that me and him talked about all the time when it comes to being vulnerable, building audience. I think, he mentioned something about, there's like a two-part. There's the internal, trying to take less focus off what other people are thinking. That's the internal part of your question. But the external part and where it ties into connection and community for him was, I think there's a lot of people out there who have this artistic skill set or artistic outlet, but they're kind of afraid to put themselves out there. And so Matt has this twofold. Yeah, he was a professional athlete and he didn't want people in the locker room probably thinking that he was soft, but he's also an artist and he's been an artist for a very long time, I think even since he was a kid. And so there's also this hurdle of like putting yourself out there and seeing how people react to your art. But he came to me one day. He's like, "How do we build our audience? How do we do all this stuff?" And I told him, I was just like, we just have to just share, bring people on the journey. And I think him even sharing that it is a vulnerable point is a big. He mentioned it, it's relatable. There's a deeper heart connection there. The same connection that we see when people like The Rock share that $7 productions stem from at one time in his life him having $7 trying to make it as an actor, make it as a screenwriter, I believe. Same thing with Oprah. She constantly shares that she deals with maybe like being overweight or how that mentality affects her daily or weekly or yearly or for half of her life. People like Steve Harvey, who shared that he was sleeping out of his car trying to make it from show to show, trying to make it as a comedian. These people don't have to share these things. They can choose to kind of be in the limelight and put up a certain facade, or maybe they want to put out a certain persona. But this is what we talk about all the time. It's like we have an influencer who really shares only the good and doesn't bring you on a journey. He or she is just looking to impress somebody all the time. And then you have an influential figure who's willing to open up like what has gone wrong in their life to show people that I'm just like you. And so I think that's a powerful message for Matt, whether he knows it or not. Him being so vulnerable and truthful is telling people that, yes, I'm a World Series champion. Yes, I sell my art for 15 ETH, but I'm just like you. I was kind of scared to put myself out there, put my art out there for people to view and see. And so that's just a really powerful thing that, one day I was just like, hey, man, you're not really an influencer in this space. You're an influential figure that people, not only are going to learn from, but can connect with you on a very deep basis. And that's ultimately why we wanted to bring him on the journey with us at Meta Athletes, because this is somebody that's going to lead people. This is somebody that people are going to trust right off the bat. He doesn't have the most followers, but the people that are paying attention to him, they have a heart connection to him, which truly does hold more influence when it comes to, the results that you and I probably get focused on, like, metrics and things like that. But ultimately, long term, we want people that are influential figures and not just an influencer. I just want to throw that quick note out there because I think that's important that he didn't really get a chance to touch on, but we talk about it pretty frequently, kind of behind the scenes.
I mean, I love it. And I actually think that as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, we need to actually kill the term influencer marketing. And what we actually really need is influential marketing. Mm-hmm. What we need are influentials, not influencers. because influencers are Web 2 people, influentials are Web 3 people, and I think that is the articulation, perhaps, or at least the reframing of what I just heard you say. And it's true, because we've seen so many. What is the? I mean, I can't believe I'd never even heard of it. But this just shows you that I spend too much time probably listening to Fanzo's podcast when I should be binge watching on on Netflix. But someone told me about Inventing Anna, which they and then there's also like Almost Famous, and so and the Fire Festival. This is all shall we say hype marketing, and we know, Drew, that you believe that hype marketing sucks. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about, I mean, I think we've seen the whole NFT marketing scenario turn itself over. The giving away of Teslas, there was so much hype. I don't know, what was his name? Conor McGregor is going to tweet us out. It's like this was a fashion NFT that I was following. And I was like, why would Conor McGregor even be relevant to your audience? How have you chosen to market this launch and being true to this idea that in fact hype marketing sucks?
Yeah, no, I think, and Josh, the reason I put that quote out there is because I went to your website and saw that when you're helping brands, you're just saying don't suck, and so I feel like the hype marketing, listen, there's a ton of tactics that are used, psychological tactics that are being used in the NFT space that we also saw in Web 2. But one that we knew from the very start that we did not want to do is say we're going to give away a Lamborghini or buy fake followers, or fake engagement. Those were like the two things that we shaped our mission around. Me and Kevin shaped our mission of Meta Athletes around the factor of we're not going to do those two things. And I think that's really significant in the space, because it's we're telling people and we're showing that we're real, and that we're not going to utilize fake tactics to generate real people, which is what we see in the space. And a Twitter account will pop up in February 15th, and then on March 18th we'll have 500,000 followers, and every single tweet gets 700, 1,000 retweets. It just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't add up. But what sucks is that people that are coming into the space and they haven't been able to, maybe they're not, they have full-time jobs and able to do the research like Fanzo does research. They see these metrics, they see what's happening on Twitter, and they fall for it, right? They fall for, wow, this is a project that has really done the work to generate a following, somehow has generated a following, and they are now deemed significant in the space. If I have an opportunity to grind for a whitelist and then mint their project, I'm going to be in a great place. For us, we are just choosing not to fall into the tactics that are, they're proving to us that it's actually extremely effective. And projects are minting out and generating, $3 to $15 million overnight with these tactics. But when I joined into the world of entrepreneurship, when Kevin Smith joined into the world of entrepreneurship, we had this idea of we're able to not only choose how we want to spend our time and what people we want to spend our time with, or how we're making our money, but that is the biggest factors. How are we making the money? Are we scamming people into thinking that we're a much bigger deal than we actually are? Would we feel good about that? And that's where also Fanzo comes into play big time. Is we're kind of built on this idea of educating the space to make sure that people are coming in and protecting their wealth, not just looking to gain another customer. And so that's a big thing for us. We're totally built on karma, Josh. I think that's the big thing is the karma piece for us. We want to be built on karma. We want people to support us and join our project because they believe in us as people. And so for that reason, we're fully doxed. For that reason, we won't buy any fake followers or fake engagement. And our main mode of marketing, there's two things that we've kind of chosen from the get-go. We're going to be on spaces and audio rooms as much as possible. We're going to be dishing out as much value from what we've learned being operators in the space as possible. And, because Fanzo is a part of our project, we now have a daily education piece going out, right? So we feel like that is, our biggest strength is we're putting out daily evergreen content to make sure that people are able to enter the space and invest their time before they invest their money. That's kind of the big piece. The second one is, I think for us, not only educating people, but also having, and this is where actually I have this up, Joffs. I just picked up this book. So when I was on your website earlier yesterday,
Did
I
I
came
mention
across.
did I mention you're my favorite guest ever? Did I mention
Yeah,
that?
I figured I would be after that, but I can't wait to dive into it because flip the funnel that's what we're doing. We're flipping the funnel. We want our current, I say current because we're going to be minting out a couple days. We want our holders to be the marketing tool that pushes us forward. And there's a couple reasons why. One is I've always inherently known that people that, if we just support the people that support us, we're going to be okay, marketing wise. It's just, we've seen it in so many different scenarios in the marketing world, in the brand world. And you realize this because you wrote a book on it. But me and Kevin inherently knew that if we take care of the people that showed up to support us, that we're going to be okay. So we chosen to do a 2,000 drop, a 4,000 drop, and a 4,000 drop of tokens, so that when we mint out 2,000, that might give us 500 to 1,000 holders. All we have to do is make sure that those people feel the strong utility that we're providing through the MetaMind concept, through access to athletes, and through access to Fanzo, who's providing that daily education piece, where all we have to do is have them go find 1 or 2 people to bring in for the next mint, and then we'll sell 4,000. That, it seems so simple, but we're choosing to not focus on generating more awareness to get more people through the doors to be a customer. All we're doing is we're providing utility, and powerful utility, to people that are showing up first. That is a concept that I've learned by working with Charlie, and we called it momology. The concept, and our goal was to take a total stranger and turn them into a mom. And I know that sounds really funny, but you couldn't write this up, but your mom joined this YouTube, right? She probably supports damn near everything that you put out. And so we want to figure out how we can take a complete stranger to a mom status person or user or customer, or whatever you want to call it, as quickly as possible. We do that through like a 7-touch process. And for us, that mom represents, if you put out a post, they're probably going to like it and comment it. If you put out a t-shirt, they're probably going to buy it. If you start a YouTube show and have guests on, they're probably going to join and start watching it, right? So that's why we've chosen to build this marketing concept of momology, which is just paying attention to the people that are showing up to support you. That could be for a music artist, an athlete, an NFT founder. That is ultimately what we're looking to do. And that 7-step process is not like a detailed process. It's just 7 human events. This is like my Bible, Joffs, the Dale Carnegie. And the first step might just be using their name, just talking to them. The second step might be talking about what they want to talk about. It might be making them feel significant. I always tell people that if I ever wrote a book in the future, that I would write the book How to Text Friends and Influence People, because that's ultimately what we're doing through Discord. Is we're building these lines of communication to mimic being a friend. And who's more trustworthy than a friend, whether that's for a restaurant recommendation, a movie recommendation, Netflix recommendation. So my goal, and to be very transparent with you, it's been tough because we wear a lot of hats as NFT founders. But my goal is that everybody that comes in, we can have these one-on-one conversations. We don't see them as a follower of Web2. We see them as, you're choosing to support us at Meta Athletes, whether you're an athlete or a high performer or a coach. You're choosing to come support us. What can we do? Can we have a conversation with you? Can we make sure that you have a MetaMask? Can we make sure that you know how to mint? Can we make sure that if you have a question, we have a support ticket system to make sure that you're being heard and that you're being taken care of? And so that kind of leads to our second mode of marketing. When it ties to word of mouth, is just provide them as much value and utility as possible and let them be the marketing for us. I kind of tell people that the NFT space right now is like there's Chick-fil-A's everywhere. Everybody has a really great chicken sandwich, in terms of an NFT or NFT art, but not everybody has the Chick-fil-A customer service. And so, Popeyes having the chicken sandwich to compete, yeah, it made a splash, but people don't talk about Popeye's customer service. They always, rave about customer service at Chick-fil-A, in addition to it being food that people enjoy. So we kind of tell people, and we tell this to our mods, we tell this to our team, that like we want to provide Chick-fil-A customer service so that people talk about the NFT, the chicken sandwich, but they also talk about the people at Meta Athletes, because we think that that's highly significant. And that's one of the main reasons why I think people will view us differently in the space, is because we have both, not just one.
Well, let me tell you, everyone, please look out for Drew Cohen's new book called Chick-fil-A Customer Service. You have successfully, we went from Grand Slam winning home runs to Meta Athletes, and we ended up with Popeyes or Chick-fil-A. So James Doyle just arrived, and he's probably wondering if this is the Chick-fil-A show. It is not.
Sponsored.
And Chris Carter says, just got into the space a few months ago, looked at a good amount of projects. Drew, Fanzo, Gary have the best approach to their respective projects I've seen by far. And also he amplified this idea of influentials versus influencers. For those of you that are watching, please remember that if you want to, I mean, at this point, it's kind of a little bit of a no-brainer. I broke my rules. Because the founders need to be doxed. They are. I need to own one of their NFTs. I will, because I'm on the whitelist, and so is everyone watching right now. You just have to go straight into the Discord server. It could not be easier. And then my third rule generally is that the project has to have launched. But I feel we're so close to launch date, and the project actually was paused because the founders wanted to make sure that with all the rugs going on and all the scams going on, that they did right by their buyers, by their customers, by their users. And so they went back and they slowed down like the tortoise in order to speed up. So hopefully you guys are in on the launch on Monday. Drew, I wish you luck. You are a pro, my friend, and an absolute natural. James Doyle says all in on Meta Athletes. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I leave you in the capable hands of Mr. Chuck Norris, who I'm sure will be buying into Meta Athletes on Monday. Chuck, what do you think of hype marketing actually coming to die a miserable, painful death in favor of flipping the funnel?
You are Chuck Norris approved.
I thought you would say that. We will be back on Monday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.